Welcome to the Bench Press and Business Podcast. Today's guests are the co-founders of Lift, Learn and Burn. Jen passed her teaching degree in 2014, then worked as a teacher for 5 years and has since left to become a full-time online coach. She's a qualified nutrition and weight loss advisor, behaviour change coach and qualified in pre and postnatal. Phil has a degree in physical education and worked as a PE teacher, as well as doing every job under the sun within a 4 to 5 year period, which is going to be interesting to hear about, mate. He qualified as a personal trainer in 2016 and started as a PTFC in the same year, became a full-time PT in 2018. He's recently qualified pre and postnatal coach, has since left to become a full-time online coach as well. You'll do well to keep up with a pair of them on a night out, by the way. I give you Lift, Learn and Burns, Phil and Jen. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I really like that introduction.
Mate, he'll tell you, it takes me a while to do them as well. That's why he always does them. So it takes a while. But yeah, how's things? How's things going?
Things are going very well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that we can't have any nights out. But other than that, things are good.
Yeah.
Mate, I bet your nights
I think that's
Sorry,
on, mate.
I bet your nights in are just as hectic as the nights out. I remember when we went out and your leg was, you had a cast on, didn't you?
Yeah, I was broken leg.
Yeah, and I met you was all over the place. It was unreal. It was a great night.
I was fine. In actual fact, I think I was in my boot at that point. I think I'd come out of my cast.
Yeah.
But I was still in my boot and powered through.
Still on the dance.
went out in a cast and got legless. How mad's that?
Yeah.
Cool. So, it's going to be interesting for us to hear both of your journeys and where you started and then where you've ended up and a little bit about Lift, Learn and Burn as well. Is something that most of our viewers will be like really interested in. It's the journey, the business, how it grew and stuff like that. So take it away, you guys. Where did you start?
Where to start? I think you're probably I suppose my background isn't as interesting to a lot of people listening because I've come from outside of the industry, so I started off.
I think that's great though. That would be good to hear because I think that move from outside in, like what triggered that, what sparked that, what you took from before and then brought across would be quite good to get an insight into.
So I suppose for me it was I think I'd obviously lovely intro. I've been teaching for 5 years, but I've been really struggling with mental health. This is something that I'm quite open and talk about quite a lot on my Instagram. But it really took its toll on me. I was suffering quite severely with stress, ended up having quite a lot of time off work because of it. Really started getting quite bad anxiety as well, to the point where I couldn't really cope anymore, could I? And poor Phil had to put up with me all the time. I mean, I'm less stressed, so that's changed. But yeah, I think it was just really taking its toll on me, and I needed to make a change, but I didn't particularly know what to do. And I think I met Phil, just nearly 4 years ago now, wasn't it? So I'd been a teacher for a couple of years by then, and I think my own weight loss journey started through meeting Phil. Like, I really struggled with my weight, my emotions, my relationship with food. Like, it was all really massively interlinked for me. And I think through my own journey with that, I started to kind of really get a passion for nutrition, and that's kind of what led me towards that. And it was just basically an escape for teaching, and it seemed to make sense. And I think I'll let Phil tell you more about where he kind of came from, but I think we naturally came together to form Lift, Learn and Burn, and when he kind of fills in the gaps there, you'll see how that started from me kind of jumping in with you, didn't it?
Yeah, I think like Jen's journey is very similar to anybody else's in the fitness industry. It just started later, didn't it? Like for most of us, we started training when we was like 16, 17, 18, pretended we knew what we was doing, throwing dumbbells and barbells all over the place, hope for the best for the first few years.
What program were you doing, Phil?
I was doing, Jen always brings this up, I was doing Dwayne The Rock Johnson's program for about put on about half a pound in 3 years. Mass whatsoever. And then decided that probably wasn't the best thing to take. It was a 7-day training split. And it got me absolutely nowhere. It still hasn't, to be fair. I'm no bigger since I was 16, but I've just moved away from that. But yeah, it's similar to that. You know, there was always that passion for fitness and training, and I was always in a gym, and always pretending I knew what I was doing, but I was never getting anywhere. And I think it was when I was going to university and all my family were like, "You'd be a great teacher, just do it, you'd be brilliant." I was like, all right, because I was young and impressionable. So I just listened to what I was told by everyone around me. Got into teaching, 5 minutes in, honestly, I hated it more than anything whatsoever. I'm just softer than Jen, so I just got out.
Somebody say braver, because you got out before you got fully in. I didn't have the guts to do that.
One or the other. I disappeared straight away. I was like, this is not for me. This is grim. So I left and went travelling for a year. And it was when I came back that I did the 4 or 5 years of honestly having no idea what I wanted to do. And I was speaking to a client about this recently because she was talking about getting out of her industry to go into the fitness industry. And I was like, it wasn't like a light bulb moment where I was like, right, I'm going to become a PT and it's going to be the best thing ever. It was more of a journey of 4 to 5 years of trying literally every job under the sun, hating every single one of them, getting paid literally nothing for any of them. But that wasn't the issue because I was living Friday to Sunday anyway. I just worked Monday to Friday and went out at the weekend.
I think I still find jobs that you've not told them that you've done.
Yeah, there's tons. Like the list, I honestly I'd get halfway through now and forget.
I think there was like 20 jobs when we like counted it up.
There was about 25 in 4 years, I think, because I was just doing a job and going, this isn't for me. Next one. Like there was a point where I was digging holes for the council. So
that's when we met.
That's when we met because I was digging holes for the council.
Did she fall in the hole and then you dug her out? And he was like, oh.
Yeah, he's good with a spade. He'll do. So,
to be fair, you got yourself out of that hole pretty well then, to be fair. I'll give you that.
Yeah, there was just everything like bar work, that type of thing, digging holes. Like I went working with a brickies labourer. I just felt like I did everything. I was a waiter. I don't know, I'll get off on a massive tangent if I try and name them all, but there's so many jobs. And I genuinely think, and I always say this, it was, and I've spoken to Martin about this in the past, when I met Jen, I think it was quite pivotal for me because she's very like supportive and not pushy. Like if I didn't want to become a PT, it wouldn't have happened. But because she could see that I wanted to do that, it just gave me that support and that kind of almost a fallback to say, yeah, go and take this big jump. Because I noticed every job I tried was pretty rubbish. Like there isn't a person on the planet that couldn't get the jobs I was getting. I was just doing it as almost like a stepping stone until I found one I enjoyed. Like I said, there was all the same wage, all the same level. They were all rubbish. And it was only when I became a PT or a fitness instructor that I actually took a bit of a step up, didn't I? Where I actually went, right, I'm going to actually give something a go here and see what happens.
I mean, it wasn't an easy one.
No, it wasn't. It was gruesome. It was the hardest 6 months. Like how long had we been together? Like 5 months?
Yeah, probably about that.
So we hadn't been together very long, and I'd made the decision I was going to do it. And at this point, I was working I was a brickies labourer at the time. Hating the job so much. My boss was just hilarious, but I just couldn't be bothered seeing him on a daily basis. Like he was one of them people where he was dead funny, but at the same time, I just wanted a serious answer every now and again about what I was supposed to do.
Oh, it sounds like you.
Yeah, it does. That's why it didn't work.
You've become your boss.
Yeah,
That's why it didn't work.
The stories he tells me, I'm like, yeah, that's you.
And I was like, right, I'm going to become a fitness instructor. I'm going to become a PT. I'm going to be dead successful. I'm going to smash it. And like within 6 months, I'll be famous on Instagram or whatever, like everybody says. And I remember I was like chatting to Jen about it. I was like, right, I'm going to become a PT. So I signed up to my course. And it was in about a month's time, wasn't it? The course that was supposed to start. And I was like, right, I'll tell my boss I'm quitting. And I was buzzing to tell him because I couldn't wait to see his face, even though I knew he wouldn't care. And I was replaceable. Like, I was basically, he could have just bought me for another £1. It wasn't a big issue for him. But I just wanted to get out. And I remember I went about 2 weeks before the actual course was supposed to start. I got an email saying, oh, sorry, mate, course has been put back a week. So I was like, oh, great, I'll have an extra week off then. Got another week into the future and it said, oh, sorry, the course has been cancelled. But I'd already quit the job. So I was a bit like, oh, right, well, this is going to be pretty tough. So they said, I'll cut it a bit short because it can get quite a long story. In the end, yeah, they put me onto the online course and said, right, you can do it online, do it as quick as you want. And I think I completed it in about 8 days, didn't I? The 7-week course. Because I was like, I am the type of person where I like put my mind to it, do it. So I was getting up at 5, 6 in the morning, still working at 10 o'clock at night. I was like, I'm just going to get this course finished. Like I said, I'd done it by like the Tuesday after. And the next 6 months were just horrific, weren't they? I was like travelling to Leeds and back to get my like practicals done. And everything
just get cancelled, didn't it?
I'd get there and they'd be like, oh, sorry, mate, cancelled. I'm like, it's literally a 2-hour train journey, mate. Like, can you not tell me 2 hours ago?
I think at one point my friend ended up taking me to do the practical, didn't she? Because you've been messed around that much, and it was half term and I couldn't take you. So I was just like, teach a friend, can you take him?
And it got to a point where I'd obviously had like, I'd quit my job in February, and it was like July when I finally got to June, July, August, something like that, around end of summer. And I'd spent all my savings because I weren't expecting to have that much time off. I was expecting to have 7 weeks off and then get a job. I mean, obviously, I'm a millionaire, like all PTs do, but it just didn't happen like that. So Jen was like, right, you need to, you know.
We were literally just driving around Wigan, and Phil was just going into every gym and dropping his CV off at the door, basically.
I spoke to every gym manager in Wigan in about like 3 hours, and none of them gave me a job. And then finally, someone decided to take a chance, didn't they, Martin? No,
they did.
So, I'm sat here now. The fact as well, this is how bad the journey was. My PT journey is ridiculous. I went for my first interview with Martin and Vicky, and after it, I was like, Jen, I've smashed it. I remember meeting Jen and Mum in Manchester. I was like, I went so well, really good conversation, just enjoyed it, like on the same wavelength, really looking forward to it. I reckon I've got a second interview. About a week went by, I was like, I had an email.
I was like, email them, just say, like, get some feedback. If you've not got it, just ask for feedback.
So I rang Martin, I was like, hi mate, just want a bit of feedback. He was like, yeah, why have you not got back to me? My wrong email address.
Oh, no.
So he'd emailed a different email address inviting me back, and I was just like, why is this happening to me? I was like, this is not for me, this PT stuff, clearly. So I could have given up then, but we cracked on anyway. And then became a fitness instructor, and that's kind of where we started working together, I think, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, I think because I had done graphics at college, and I'd done photography at uni. So I was very heavily involved in what you were kind of doing at the gym, wasn't I?
I was doing more than me at one point. I had no clients, and Jen was grafting at home, creating all the business cards on my website and everything, which again, as we know now, probably was a waste of time, wasn't it? But
even at the beginning, like you were getting up at like 3 a.m. was it, to get the bus to Manchester because you still lived at your mum's in Wigan at the time.
It's the only person that offered me a job worked in a gym 2 hours away.
It took you 2 hours on the bus, didn't it? And
to be fair, you might have got offered other jobs. It just might have gone to the wrong email.
It's a very good point. Why have I only just thought of that? I've been successful at anything. This is ridiculous.
But yeah, like we barely saw each other, did we? Because like you were getting up at crack of dawn and coming back at like 10 p.m, jumping in bed, going to sleep. Like
that was Monday to Saturday, wasn't it? Sunday I just slept. It was ridiculous when I first got started. But to be fair, like, and not just to like big him up, mine was like a massive pivotal point. I've always spoke to Jen about this at the time. Like, if I didn't have business coaching at Pure Gym in Spinningfields, I would not have been a PT for longer than like the 3 months you get.
We still use the time blocking stuff that Martin did with you, don't you? Like that's a big like foundation of our...
It's mad though, because you say that, but every time, and I use you as an example quite a lot, but every time we'd sit down, you'd have ideas, and you knew where you wanted to get to, and you knew what you wanted to do, and that helped because sometimes you'd come out of it and go, nice one, mate, thanks for that, and you'd done all the talking. You created it, and the reason why it worked is because it was your ideas, and it was something that you was passionate about that you wanted to make work. And I think what's great, and we've talked about this loads. Me and Dan have talked about it. Me and you've talked about it before, Phil. Is you need support, and if you didn't have support from Jen, it would have been just like every other job. It wouldn't have lasted long, mate. Like, and we harp on about how important support from somebody somewhere is. Do you know what I mean? And that is always a big tell for me. And you don't give yourself enough credit, I don't think, in terms of the workload that you put in that business coach. Do you know what I mean? So from that point, where did you? How did it start to pick up? What worked for you? What didn't work for you in terms of getting clientele and moving into them becoming that rent PT where you just everything? Because I remember how you knew what you wanted to do, didn't you? You wanted to be out of the door before a certain time. You wanted to be home. How did you manage to structure that and get that to work?
So when I first started, my big thing was if I'm there all day, I speak to more people than anyone else. So my goal was I'm getting in at 6 o'clock when most people get there. I'm going home at 10 o'clock because I need to see as many people as possible. Because I saw a lot of people that were going in, speaking to 1 or 2 people, going home, and I was like, what are the odds of me picking up a client and speak to 2 people? Like, the ratio just isn't there. Now, my theory has changed a little bit, but at the time, I was fresh into the industry, that was my goal. I was like, be there all day, just speak to literally everybody on the gym floor, as many people as you physically possibly can. And this was at a point where I didn't even really know if I was good enough to help them. Like, kind of knew what I needed to do. I knew what calorie deficit was, and I knew the basics, but I wasn't like, could I change someone's behavior? I didn't even know. I don't think I knew what behavior change was back then. Like, I wasn't even that aware in terms of knowledge wise, but in terms of like effort and passion, I was like, right, I'm being there more than anybody else. And I remember like long-term PT saying to me, like, do you ever go home? But to me, that was like a big win. That was like, at the time, that was like my medal. It was like, right, I clearly don't go home. I'm here all the time, and it's because I'm putting the time and effort in. And I think for about 3 months, I wasn't tired, and it didn't bother me because it was working and I was picking up clients. But the problem I had was the first client I picked up, and I remember them both, Nicole, she did her session at 6:30 in the morning. The second client I picked up, Abby, did hers at 7:30 at night on Tuesday and Thursday. So that weren't ideal, as you can probably imagine.
Quite a few times
I think
after that shift, after that session, and just like, come on, I'll take you home.
one of the big things there that I think is useful to take away, and I think with any business, like regardless if it's fitness or whatever, they're all going to run at a loss, aren't they? In some way or form. Actually, for yourself, that loss was time. Like you lost time rather than having that expense, so on and so on and so on. That initial loss was time, and I don't think a lot of people tend to take that on board. That they think that it's just going to be a case of, right, I'll rock up for, in this case, maybe shifts that I'm there to do, and I'll get stuff off the back of that. But you've got to invest the time, or invest from a monetary point of view, to see some sort of return, haven't you? And I think that's quite a big takeaway for anyone really, is be conscious of that loss when you first get started.
Absolutely. And I think it's about not trying to be perfect when you first get in. So
yeah.
like, what my lead generation when I first started would have been horrendous. Like, it would have been terrible, but it would never have got good if it wasn't terrible at some point. Like, it had to be, I had to be consistent with it. I had to turn up and I had to do it. And I had to get rejected 100 times so that I could get that 101st person to say, yeah. Like, it's pointless me looking back and saying, oh, well, I was rubbish 100 times. At least I was good once, because then I got that client. Then you talk to maybe 90 more people before you get your next one, and then 80, and then 17. You just get better at speaking to people and being able to help them. And obviously, the longer that you're in the industry, the more experience you get and the more you can actually help people. Because like I said at the beginning, you probably just about know enough to help someone get into a deficit. But when it comes to the more complicated stuff, you probably don't. And that's where people like Jen come in within the business. Like, her actual ability to change behaviors and habits and routines and stuff like that is incredible, which is stuff that you're not going to know just after doing your level 3 PT course. And I think the biggest thing for me was just accepting that it wasn't going to be perfect, but it didn't need to be. It just needed to be consistent. And the longer I did it, the better I got. And the more I started to pick up more clients based on the less that I was doing. So there wasn't really like a pivotal point where I went, right, I'm just going to do less hours. I just got to a point where I started to take a bit more control of my business and say, right, I'm in charge of this now. So I'm the one that says when people train, because no one else is going to do it for me. And my clients are just going to keep turning up, like, in a non-big-headed way. I was like, I do a good job, they come back, basically. That's the basics of personal training, isn't it? Do a good job, they come back, they keep coming back. And they keep coming back until you've completed your job, and then you get a referral. Like, that's the best way to run it. And I think for me at the time, it was more about refining things rather than trying to get it perfect. So it got to a point where I was like, right, I want my first client to be at 6 a.m. because I like getting up and I like getting into the gym when it's quieter. My target audience was females who didn't particularly love training anyway. So I don't want to be training people at 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock, because they don't want to be in them themselves. So why should I? So then it was just trying to refine things and work out, well, when is my target audience in? And if it's people that I want to train between 6 and 12, then I need to be there between 6 and 12.
I remember you coming home and you had that conversation with Matt, and you like he said, like, if I want to pick up clients at that time, that's the time I need to be in the gym, and that's the time I need to be speaking to people, because that's the time they're there. And I think it helped as well that I was your target audience.
Oh, big time.
So I was feeding in the worries and problems and struggles that they were having to him, so you knew like the type of person you were looking for.
100%.
That's a big point, that, isn't it, to be fair? Because I suppose if you've not been in that situation yourself, you might find it difficult to relate to necessarily that market unless you've got someone that you can go to who's been in their position and get the info from. So that's fair play. That's massive.
Yeah.
Did that support? Sorry, go on, Jen.
I was just going to say, I was saying, like, they'll be hanging around the cross trainers and the bikes, and they'll be on there because they don't know what else to do. and they'll probably be wearing a big baggy t-shirt because they're not feeling very confident about what they're wearing in their own skin. Like, because that was me. That's what I was doing like months beforehand. And
it's mad, isn't it? As soon as she would have said that to you, the next day you got on the gym floor, you would have seen them all. You would just open your eyes. You would have been like, wow. And then when you go and teach a class, it's like, I can see every one of them. They're all in them positions, doing exactly what Jen said. That's where they are. Did that help with your online marketing as well?
Yeah, hugely, massively. Yeah. I think that's the big part of online. I think that's the difference. One of the main differences between PT and online as well. And I know this gets spoken about a lot, but I think when you are going into a gym as a PT, like, you do have your own niche, and mine was to help, female weight loss. And I'm aware that obviously within a gym, about 80% of females that go to the gym, they go for weight loss, like, based on every stat I've ever been told. So I was probably hitting into a market where there was more people, which probably made the job a bit easier. Still got to do the job, but it made it slightly easier to hit. Like, I wasn't going to work at Pure Gym Spinning Fields and become an expert in powerlifting, because who wants to learn powerlifting at the gym? Like, no one. Not like, and I wouldn't know what I was doing anyway, but it wouldn't have worked. So I had to work with the market I had. But I think when you're online, you open yourself up to a bigger market, because
you've got to have your niche. Yeah. You've literally got to have your niche. You've got to know your niche and talk to them, talk to their problems, talk to their struggles all the time, just on repeat. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that drove us forward in the kind of first steps of building it, was we knew exactly who we wanted to target, because you'd worked with them in the gym, I'd been them, so Phil had helped me through stuff, so we knew that target audience like inside and out by that point, didn't we?
Yeah, and it really helped just being able to just know what they struggle with and help them overcome that, even with an Instagram post, an Instagram story, whatever it is that you're doing online. If you know what they're struggling with and you can help them with it, and you put that out there, you're probably taking a big step forward. And I think something that's happened with me, and I know Jen noticed this as well, like, throughout my career, is moving away from caring what other PTs think and starting caring about what your actual target market think. Because there was a point where, and it's quite daunting when you go in as a PT, especially when you're new, especially Pure Gym Spinning Fields, there was like 29 PTs or something. So I'm like, right, so there's me, I'm brand new, I've got an Instagram account, and there's like 28 other PTs who've got an Instagram account, and they're talking about things like creatine and, I don't know, other complicated things that I know nothing about. And I'm like, right, so I need to do that as well. And you almost follow and try and one-up them.
Impress them. Yeah.
100%. It's like, right, if you're talking about creatine, I want to talk about creatine loading phases. Who cares? Like, no one, like, if I said to Jen about creatine loading phases, she couldn't care less. Like, I don't care that much. But it was like, I was doing things like that. And when I look back at my old content, it was all very geared towards a PT environment of like how to do certain movements perfectly, which within, a PT session is probably slightly relevant, but even then it's probably not that relevant. Like, your average female weight loss client doesn't care whether she's doing the tricep push down at the perfect angle with the hips push. Like, that's not as relevant as having the chat about a food intake for the week.
I think something else that's really important, what Phil did, was like, he learned about females, because like, I know this is very gender specific and maybe a little bit sexist, but a lot of males don't understand how the female mind works, and Phil really took the time.
They're from Venus, aren't they? So it is a little bit tough, to be fair.
Well, he was very empathetic towards his clients and listened to their emotions and learned about periods and how periods affect their training and the moods coming into the gym. And I think that's why you did so well with the target audience you were working on, because you were doing the extra research outside of the gym as well. And like, you were able to empathize with them. And I think I've had people come to me like online saying like, I've worked with so many male PTs and now I want a female, because they just didn't understand my periods and how my energy levels changed and how like I was eating more, and they couldn't help me with it. They just kind of brushed over it. And I'm not saying that's everyone, but I'm saying that's where Phil really did well in terms of that at the gym.
That sort of directed the development you did of yourself then. Once you had that real clear understanding of who your market was, you went and developed yourself based off of that, rather than maybe what you were more interested in. But you get what I mean, things that might have benefited maybe your own training a little bit more or whatever. Would you say that was the case?
100%. Like, there was a massive switch in who I was following on social media, who I was listening to on social media, the types of books that I was reading, the type of information I was taking in, the stuff that I was skimming over compared to the stuff that I was actually really in-depth caring about. There was genuinely a point where I unfollowed so many people on social media just because there was too much noise happening that I was comparing myself to, and that included, you know, I will admit, a lot of PTs, because I didn't want to feel like I was competing against them. And for me, the only way to get away from that was to unfollow them. And it was nothing against them, because I'm sure the content they're putting out is brilliant, but it didn't help me. So I had to follow a lot of like PTs who were at my level, but then a lot of PTs like Jamie Aldertons and James Smith and people like that. I had to not see their stuff, because I was then letting that get into my head and me think, well, what about what I said is what I've said, right? And I don't want an argument. I want to believe what I want to believe.
Yeah, I think it paralyzes you a little bit as well, doesn't it? Because you sit there thinking they're already putting this message out. If I'm putting that out as well, people have already seen them say it, when actually the reality is you've seen it because you're following them, but your audience probably aren't following them. Yeah. And I think for me, that's a big thing, that you tend to sit there and you're like, well, maybe I won't post this today because someone else has already said it before me, and I'm just going to look like I'm repeating what they're saying.
Mad that happened yesterday, didn't it?
Like literally, Phil had written this really, really good post. You showed it me like a couple of days ago, and then he turned around and he was like, "Jen, look at this post that's just gone viral today," and it was literally nearly word for word what Phil had already written. And I was like, "Still post it, but just change the wording a little so it doesn't look like you've carbon copied it, because you had those ideas like days ago."
Yeah, thanks for sending that over, by the way. I appreciated it. It was great.
But yeah, it does still happen, and I think it's not caring that it happens as well. That's the big thing. Like when you are a PT, you're gonna see people online doing different things, and you've honestly, and you've almost got to not care. Like I was speaking to a client a few weeks ago about comparison, because she was talking about like comparing herself to other people in the gym, and I was like, well, that's because you're a human, and that's normal. Like once you stop comparing yourself, it basically makes you a bit of a psychopath, doesn't it? Like we can only push away so much. When you go in a gym, you're going to compare yourself. Fact. The goal isn't to stop comparing yourself, it's to not let it dictate what you do next. That's what's important. And if you can stay on the same line and stay on the same track and talk about what you want to talk about, irrelevant of what other people think about you, you'll get a lot further than if you're just thinking, oh, what if this person thinks this post's a bit rubbish? Who cares what that person thinks? They're not going to buy from you anyway. They're not a target audience client. Like, it's irrelevant. They don't want your help. It doesn't matter what that other PT thinks. It doesn't matter what that online coach thinks of your post. Like, it is so irrelevant. Yeah. If your target audience see that and go, oh, it sounds like he's speaking to me, pretty much onto a winner, right?
Yeah, I think it's really important what Phil said in terms of not blurring your message as well, because I think sometimes you can see other people like Jordan Sayat's one of my absolute favourites on Instagram, but I don't follow him because I know that if I follow him, I'll somehow take that message in and put it into my message. Like, I only see his post through other people's posts. I want to stay true to my message, and I don't want to be taking somebody else's message and putting it into mine, because that's not me then, that's somebody else saying it. And I find that if I am following these people, I do kind of take it on, and I will start, that comparison thing triggers for me. So I don't think I follow any big fitness people at all on Instagram now. I think it's just like PTs that like yeah, follow you. Big
So now you've the lift, learn and burn has just started to grow. And when did you get to the point from a PT, full-time PT now? Now we're going to go and we're going to start to launch this, because you've recently just launched it in the last few. Well, when's it launched now again?
January.
Well, it launched in January. We started building everything in like June, July.
Yeah,
and
it started off because we started talking quite a lot, because like I say, we did do a lot of your stuff and discuss ideas and stuff together outside of the gym. And
you did a lot of my stuff. I say I had no involvement in any of it whatsoever. I just turned up and did the session. Jen did everything else.
I did say before, do you remember when like you were doing your PT and I like had no involvement, and I actually turned around to you and said, I need a break from my second job, like and that was before I was even officially doing it. But we were trying to find like a niche, weren't we, online for those people, and we came up with the idea of Lift, Learn and Burn, and initially it was just Phil.
You was almost going to be in the background doing the graphics and design and everything, weren't you?
And then I don't even know how. I think I just decided I wanted to do the course.
I think you realised I can't do anything on my own. It's like, you're out here, Phil.
It just kind of naturally formed. Like, there was never like a conversation where we were like, shall we do this together? it just kind of happened where I kind of was like, I actually kind of want to do like a nutrition based course, and it was like the kind of bigger courses for me, like I wanted to do the MAC nutrition, but like it wasn't within our budget at that point. So it was like, how can we do something that is within budget that'll get me some kind of qualification that I can then justify being involved with this. And so I kind of went out, and I think you asked Martin, didn't you, a recommendation? I think you recommended the Future Fit stuff, which was really, really good. So we decided to do it in June, didn't we? And then from June to December, we grafted, because we launched Lift, Learn and Burn as a membership site initially. So it was like low cost buy-in, targeting like that audience of like females who weren't feeling confident in the gym, like wanted to lose some weight, but didn't particularly know what they needed to do. And we spent a lot of time kind of refining it, planning it. We created a 6-month plan, didn't we, from like June to December. And I actually got it in front of me now. So we literally wrote down, I don't know why I seem to have it in front of me, but
Mate, Dan's going to love this. He's already, look, his mouth's watering because there's a pad coming out.
So, I know you can't see it because it's a podcast, but we had the ideas of what we were going to do, what the program was, the personalised training at the costing, the trial, and then we started to like break it down. So we literally wrote every single month down and what our tasks for each of us were going to be that month, all the way from June to December, when we launched it and told people about it. So it was literally like absolutely everything that we needed to do. We had it all written down, and we just assigned it to what month we were going to do it in.
It was basically all on board and stuff, and client journey, and how we was going to get them in, but then what it was going to look like from their side, and how everything was going to link together, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was
it's really interesting. Sorry to butt in there. It's really interesting because I've got like a 1 line a day journal thing, and I'm currently on my 2nd year of it. So at the moment, it's all like, was filming till midnight in the gym for like Learn and Burn tonight. And like that's what we were doing, wasn't it? Because we wanted like videos that had me in as the female and not Phil, because it didn't relate. And I wasn't very confident getting on camera in the gym, so we were doing it at like ridiculous hours of the night, so I didn't feel embarrassed.
You know what? I remember that because I used to say, "What are you up to tonight, Phil?" And be like, "Well, I'm coming back at about 1 a.m. I'm going to do some filming. Sweet, see you later."
I think we like took all of the gym when we did it. We got like lighting kit and stuff in there as well, and we tried to do it to the best of our capacity that we could do it, didn't we? So it looked as professional as we could, and we had like guides for like gym equipment. We had photos for it all with the names of everything. Language things we thought, like it was basically like your beginner's gym guide, wasn't it? Like everything you could ever needed, and we spent hours building that from June to December, didn't we?
And I think the thing is, we was in a position where we couldn't afford to like outsource anybody else doing it. Like we're not like Instagram influencers who've just got access to like millions of pounds worth of equipment and designers and like anything that they need. So they just bring out a new app every 6 months and sell it off for like $5.99 a month. Like we weren't in that position, so we was like, right, we'll just do it then, because we weren't afraid of just putting the graft in. So it's like, we'll just do it. We'll just spend 6 months building it. Let's just do what they would do, but on a smaller scale.
And it was actually a bit of a relief for me from school, because I was coming home, and although I was working like these mad hours, like I was coming home and I was switching from like school stress state into something that I was actually really enjoying doing. And although I was like ridiculously busy, I was actually enjoying that bit more than my like day-to-day job. So like it was allowing me to kind of switch my focus and focus on something different and something that I was like passionate and really wanted to do.
But I think we took the same philosophy of like nothing being perfect. Like we focused just around getting everything done. That was the point.
Not at first. At first, it was very much like, this is not perfect.
Yeah.
And then slowly we realised that it just couldn't be.
I think, to be fair, that's something that's come out quite a bit as you've been talking, is that whole acceptance. I've written down just here, that whole acceptance piece of sort of like just being comfortable with, this is the position I'm in at the moment, let me find a solution as to how to move forward. So accepting that at some point you're going to be shit at lead generation, accepting at some point that your video is probably not going to be as perfect as you want it to be, but then having that solution, and I suppose that determination and commitment to just continue learning, continue refining it, and continue polishing it until until you make that progress, because that's a big thing for me. I always call myself a recovering perfectionist, because I have to have a word with myself, because it is that, isn't it? Yeah. And I suppose sometimes that's a little bit of a cover up for insecurity, really, when you're putting stuff out there to people that are going to be judging you, although we don't necessarily want to focus on the fact that other people judge us. As you said earlier, it's always going to happen, isn't it? And you're always going to compare yourself to what others are putting out there. But that's a big one, I think, that acceptance of this is where we are, this is what we need to do to move forward, and just getting it done.
Yeah, I think I found that hard actually coming, just on an interesting note, coming into like launching it, because Phil already had a presence on Instagram and I was just a teacher who had my own personal Instagram, and I was all of a sudden having to stand in front of a camera and speak, and like I was massively out of my comfort zone, and like I was about to put that in front of an audience of people who know me as a very different person. So it was a real challenge for me kind of coming into that world on the other side of it, so to speak.
How did you cope with, like, how did you find that? How did you cope with that? What did you use to work your way through that?
There was a lot of fumbling at first, and it was just a kind of, I've just got to accept that this is what it is, because although I've come from a background of being very insecure, I'm also a bit blasé about what people think about me. Like, I feel like on Instagram I could kind of just be who I wanted to be, because there's almost this like detachment from like, I'm not actually going to have someone face to face like judging me. Like, they can just be behind closed doors, but like I can kind of just create who I wanted to be. And I found that a bit of an escapism, because I always felt at school that I couldn't be who I wanted to be, because I was always bottling up my emotions and like putting the face on for the kids every day. So like I could just be who I wanted to be on Instagram. It was also like reinventing myself.
I think what really helped as well was the fact that Jen was her own target audience. So it meant that when she was doing anything, it was like, well, I'm speaking to me. So I know that if I'm going to speak to me 3 years ago would want this help. So like, I could stand here and fumble and be nervous, or I could just get it out, because that's, this is going to work. This is going to help. People want to hear this. People want to hear my story and what I've been through, or what Jen's been through, should I say.
I think that's massively powerful, that, like, because I say to loads of guys that I help out, always look back, especially if the niche is your journey, what you've been on yourself. Take yourself, if you're trying to create products or a service, or build a service for these clients or these people that you're trying to engage with, take yourself straight back to that very beginning. The minute you first walked in a gym, or the minute you looked at yourself in the mirror and went, fucking hell, I need help. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if you go back to that point, no matter what you say to that person, you know it's going to help, and you know it's going to be powerful. And I think that you saying all of that there, it's massive, that, because it will help you get that content out there. Whereas me, I'm probably on the flip side. I'm very confident face to face with people, but you put me behind the camera, or you give me, well, you've seen my Instagram, I do nothing. Do you know what I mean? And that's the flip side for me. It's really difficult to come across as myself on Instagram or on social. It's hard to even say now. Do you know what I mean? And it's difficult. So I think it's really interesting for you to say, because from my side, I'm all right speaking to people one-to-one or in groups of people, and I feel confident there. But when I'm sat in front of a camera and I have to watch it back, oh God, there's nothing worse.
Well, that's what I don't do. I just don't watch it back. That's my truth. If I know I've nailed it, that's fine. It's going out.
Watch a lot of videos. Still watch this because I can't watch it back.
That's a great takeaway for me. That I'm going to do that.
I couldn't do it. I hate the cinema. I still don't really like it. I just kind of, I think for me it was more about like accepting that if maybe I blundered over a word or two, like it's fine, like just put it out there anyway. Like it doesn't have to. I think it was that acceptance of it doesn't have to be perfect that like powered us through it. And I think both of us doing it together helped, because although like we're very different, we're also very similar in that like we push each other, we complement each other quite well, I think, in terms of my strengths and weaknesses, and like vice versa on yours. I think we do work well together in that sense. And like I think, I mean, going slightly deep, but Phil's done like absolutely ridiculous amounts for my confidence levels and like my insecurities that I had just from meeting him. And I think that's kind of pushed me to a point where I'm at now, and now I want to help others through that same thing as well. And I think that's what kept me going when we were working all those long hours to build it. And think that vulnerability in January when we came to launch it and actually put it all out there was a bit of a release by that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were just ready to go by then. We just couldn't wait to just like literally, release it, just have it out there in the open.
And do you know what? I was so blown away by how many people we got signed up, because so initially what we did was we did it, like I say, as a membership site. So we knew from you working in the fitness industry that January wasn't always as busy as people made out, because people don't have the money and they want to get started, but they don't necessarily always have the money till the end of January to actually get started. So we decided to do January free, didn't we? And we got 70 people signed up in our first month, which was like massive for us, wasn't it?
It went pretty nuts in January. Like, there was days where we was probably doing too much. We were sat in the Facebook group, because that's where we kind of built everything in, because we knew that we needed something where everyone could be together, or else it wouldn't be a community. And the big thing we've said when we started, we want a community. We want people working together. We want people to feel like they are a part of something and not just on their individual journey. Because again, learning from Jen, that's what helped Jen, having someone around her to help rather than trying to do it alone. And it was unreal in January. There was points where we was up to like 10, 11 o'clock at night, because there was like 500 comments on a post on Facebook that we was like trying to reply to and get back to, because we wanted to offer this amazing service, but it didn't quite go as planned, did it?
Yeah, we kind of
this is where it starts to go downhill a little
bit.
There has to be a downhill though, doesn't there?
It was really good. There was a really positive buzz. Like, we were putting kind of content out each day into the Facebook. We were doing a live every Monday, weren't we? Like a live Q&A, and then we started like covering topics in depth on that, and it felt really good. But then when it got to February and it was getting people actually to sign up to pay, that was when it was really interesting. And I think, how many people did we have actually stay on at that point?
It was 9, I think, in the end.
9, yeah.
And we were charging 30 quid a month, so 270 quid between us didn't go very far. As you can probably imagine, living in a city centre flat.
And we couldn't, yeah, and we couldn't. They were all people who like had stayed on, and we offered like a 50% discount on like if you bought 6 months up front, 3 months up front, or like the monthly one. So whichever one they signed up to, they got a 50% discount on for like helping us to start it basically, and like giving us some really good feedback. And yeah, we got like about 9 people. Not one person carried on the monthly subscription. And at that point, we were a bit like,
I think we realised, didn't we, that like what we'd actually offered sounds incredible on paper. Like, you've got a bit biased, but like sounds really good. Like, you've got a personal trainer, you've got a nutrition and weight loss advisor, you've got that double-edged sword. You're going to get help with both. It just wasn't individual enough. Like, it didn't give people the one-to-one.
No, we were turning into like another like.
It was another slimming world. There was no results.
And we never wanted that. We never wanted it.
We got to the end of January, there was 0 results within 4 weeks. Nobody actually got anything. Nobody achieved anything.
And that's not what we wanted.
And it didn't even create the community we wanted, because that many people left that it felt different in February. It felt like it was a deserted community.
Part, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think looking back at that, like that 4-week period, is I suppose a lot of pressure comes over that time, right, to get those results in a fairly short window following such a big period of indulgence for a lot of people. Do you think, what would you do differently if you were to do that again? That's probably took your thunder a little bit for what you're going to go through next, I'd imagine. But
we're going to do something in January, but we're going to do it shorter, because we just felt 4 weeks it's enough time to say you should get results now within the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
You should be, and you almost say to someone within 4 weeks now, you're going to be where you want to be, even though you've probably spent the last month, as you said, overindulging, and you've potentially spent the last 20 years making, routines and habits that aren't positive and healthy. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to get you from A to wherever you want to get to, and you set them up for failure, basically.
Yeah.
Everyone gave us really positive feedback. So although they didn't sign up, everyone was saying, we love what you two are doing. You've got really good kind of, we love the vibe of you. We love you two together. We love the information you're putting out there. We've learned so much from you. And it was so frustrating, because it was like, well,
yeah.
signing up. Then if you love it, because there genuinely wasn't much negative feedback, was there?
And I think it again comes back to the fact that when you create a community, sometimes people will love the community, but at the end of the day, they're paying 30 quid to just sit in a Facebook group with people.
Yeah.
In reality, you come to it for results. Like, we're not like I don't want to say like we're not results based. Like, we're more sort of.
We want to change people's lifestyles rather than like, we're not in it for the transformation photos.
It's not like an 8-week shred. Like, it's not like sign up 8 weeks, you're shredded, see you later, refer on next person. It's different to that. But at the same time, within 4 weeks, we want to see some kind of progression, even if it's not physical, even if it's not losing weight, just something where someone goes, yeah, over the last 4 weeks, I've moved from this point to this point, which is taking me 1% closer to where I want to be. And we're big on, you know, progression, and also understanding that not every month there's going to be progression, and just allowing people to adapt the lifestyles, and like making changes. And I think because it wasn't individual enough, it didn't really allow for people to make that 1% jump forward. And I think if we was to do it differently, or when we do it differently, it'll be for a shorter period of time, where we do it more, as we've discussed, like teaching lessons and saying, right, this is exactly what we're going to run through today, but we want you to go away and action it. So we want you to actually take this lesson that we're going to teach, like when Martin taught me time management and the time blocking. That will be a part of what we do in January, and say, right, we're going to teach time blocking because it's going to help you with getting things done. It's going to help with reducing stress because you're going to get your decision making is going to be a little bit easier. It's going to help with sleep because you're going to have a better routine in the evening. It's going to help in the morning because you're going to have a better routine to set up your day. You're going to be more productive, which means you're going to get more work done. You've got more time, which means making decisions around food is going to be easier. But we want to teach that lesson, don't we? And we want people to then go away and action it. So even though it's not individual, we're asking every individual to do something.
And holding them accountable for it as well. I think that's the big difference. Like we did like a 5-day challenge a little bit back that worked really well. And a few people kind of signed up to us off the back of that. But it was more that having that accountability to you. If we're teaching you this, you have to go away and action it. Otherwise, you're not staying in. Like we were quite brutal about that. But in saying that, I don't regret what we did, because those who did stay on for that 3-6 month period, actually, because it was such a small group, we were actually able to get some results, some really good testimonials off the back of it. We did get some pictures, because although that's not what we're about, that's what people need to see to get them into the business. So we did get something from it, and I don't regret doing it, because I think we learned a lot of lessons doing that. And
it's good to do it first, fail, and do some of the works. Because
if
you're sat here now going, oh, why don't we do a membership group in January, and that fails, we've kind of gone from something that's working to something that's failing, which isn't a direction you ever want to go in, is it? So I'm massively glad we did it. And
I think the big thing was that we learned was you need to have a very large following in order to have a membership site, and you also, in order to get like the numbers into a membership site, but then you also have to not really care whether you get people results or not. And
pretty much,
I think that's something that didn't particularly sit well with us. We didn't want to be taking people's money and not get them anywhere. Like it just didn't sit well with us. It's not what we wanted, and it's never what we intended Lift, Learn and Burn to be. So I think that was the point where we realised, right, this needs to be a one-to-one service.
Something needs to change. And then that's when we made. It's kind of summer, wasn't it? Well, actually, no, it wasn't. Lockdown, wasn't it?
It was just before lockdown. Yeah,
just before lockdown.
So that was like by March, we realised that it wasn't working, and we needed to do something. Yeah,
we realised that if we both wanted to go all in on online coaching, it needed to be something that was going to help people with online coaching. Like, it couldn't just be a membership site where people paid 30 quid, because realistically, like we said before, we could have got 1,000 people in it. We wouldn't have been happy, and what's the point of doing it if you're not happy? Like, you charge 30 quid, 1,000 people in it, 30 grand a month, sounds amazing, but you're not helping anyone, and that's pretty shit, to be honest with you. That means you're not helping 1,000 people, which is literally horrendous and sounds like something I don't want to be a part of. I would rather help 30 to 50 people than not help 1,000. So I was glad that we decided to take that step back and go, be honest and say, right, this hasn't worked, which, if anyone's never done it before, it's dead hard. We put all this graft in and it ain't working. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board and work out what is going to work, didn't we? And
I think that's very brave, that though, isn't it? As well, to be fair, you've got to have something in you there to be really self-aware and be accepting of the position you've ended up in. And I suppose it's coming back to that word of acceptance again. Like, this is where we're at. It doesn't matter where we thought we were going to be. This is actually where we're at now. So how do we find that solution and still continue to move forward? It's a bit of a theme going on there.
Yeah, I think that is one of our big strengths, is like both of us are so self-reflective, like probably too critical on ourselves a lot of the time, in terms of like we over-analyse everything we've done and make sure, can we do it better? What can we learn from that? How can we take it forward? I think that's just us as people, isn't it?
I think we've learned to put a deadline on it also. Like, can it be better? And if the answer's no, the answer's no. Is what it is. Get it out, get it done. Like, stop trying to make it perfect. But at the same time, not just throwing stuff out for the sake of it. Like, it's got to have a purpose, whatever it is. Like, I'm not pinpointing one little thing. It's got to have a purpose, but doesn't have to be perfect. Realistically, if whatever you're doing is going to help someone, get it out there. Like, do it, whatever it's going to be. If it's going to help, it's going to help. It doesn't have, they don't care. They don't know what perfect is. They don't know what you was trying to create. They just know they've signed up and got help. And for them, that's fit their purpose, hasn't it? And that's what you've done it for. But like we said, it wasn't.
Yeah, so then I think that then the next step was we offered like the premium service, which was our like one-to-one service. So we offered that out to all the people who'd stayed on. And I think we got
two, I think.
It was one person who, in fact, they were both two people who'd worked with you in the gym previously, weren't they?
Yeah.
So they were both ex-clients of Phil's that decided to do the premium online service. And then obviously lockdown hit. So the first lockdown, you were obviously not working at all. And I was in a position where my school was that small that we were on rota basis. And then I actually got COVID plus a chest infection, so I was ill for 5 weeks and missed my shift in school. So I was basically off school.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
No, I wish I could say I didn't. It was horrible. I was really poorly, so I missed a lot of my. So I was off school permanently for 6 weeks, wasn't I? And I think that's probably the time that we were able to, both of us, because I mean, I wasn't doing much at the time, but like I was sat on the couch and we were chatting about stuff. And I think that's really when we started to hone in and we decided to invest in a business coach at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, we realised that like we wasn't doing the online stuff right. Like we wasn't, simple as that.
We didn't know how to sell. That was our big problem.
We was putting in hours, like serious amount of hours. And to go back to like when I first started as a PT, I was putting them in is great, like putting in loads of hours is great. If you're not getting any return, you just put in hours. That's what we'd done as online coaches, isn't it? We'd put probably coming up to 12 months worth of graft, but the actual input we got from it was very, very, very minimal, to a point where we couldn't have lived off that at all. Not a chance, not even close. Like we would probably, I don't know, the flat we got in Manchester was pretty cheap, but we wouldn't have been able to afford the rent, we couldn't afford food. Like we weren't in a position where we could have continued doing that.
No, I think lockdown initially, it was just like we were just living off my wage, weren't we? Because like you'd obviously been in a position where you couldn't, Little and Burn wasn't in a position, so it was just like.
I'd taken some clients online, but again, hands up, didn't transfer properly. Like I'm the first to admit, I didn't take PT clients.
I think that's because you weren't invested in doing Zoom sessions online, where you didn't believe in that at all. And
I know a lot of people love them, and I know a lot of mentors big them up. I hated them. I genuinely hated Zoom sessions, and I know this is not a good thing to potentially say on your podcast, but the reason I didn't like them was I felt like I wasn't getting the same input from clients, but I wasn't putting in the same input either as a coach at all. Like, I was not putting my heart and soul into that PT Zoom session.
You felt so conflicted. I could tell, like, when he was going into the ones that he was doing, like, it just didn't have that passion that had always been there. Like,
no,
it just.
I think lockdown just hit me pretty hard because I love being in the gym. So like, I took it on, like the harsh reality that I couldn't work in the gym anymore. That had been my life for like 3-4 years at this point. So like, I took that on big time, didn't I, mentally? And I think I took that into my business, which is never a good thing to do. But I pushed that negative, unhappy, stressed, don't want to be doing this into my sessions on Zoom, which then meant that they didn't put into it what they could have put into it because they probably felt that energy from me. Which we didn't get any output from it again. But like I said, I hold my hands up. That was my fault. That wasn't lockdown's fault. It wasn't Zoom's fault. It wasn't their fault. That was me doing it wrong, basically, and taking on almost the responsibility of lockdown as if it was my fault that we was in lockdown and my fault that the gym shut. And I think it was only when we got probably a few weeks into lockdown, we invested in a mentor and we was like, right, let's just move in a different direction because this isn't working.
And that was the big thing for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, that
so when, but it was also a big like struggle initially because when we had the first initial call with him, his advice was to split the account. So we built Lift, Learn and Burn as Lift, Learn and Burn, and Phil had his own personal training account. And the first thing that he said was, you need your own accounts. And I was so reluctant for that, wasn't I?
You basically said people buy from people, not from businesses. And I knew that from working as a PT because I never walked up to someone and was like, oh, I'm Philip Williams personal trainer, because I'm not. I'm Philip Williams. But it was just hearing it, I think, sometimes that things did need to be different.
Yeah, especially as me, like I said before, new into the industry. Phil had a good 3,000 something followers. I Lift, Learn and Burn account had about 190 something at that point, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? You want me to do what on my own? And like, it was massively overwhelming for me because I like those self-doubt, like I think Phil was my comfort blanket, and then it was like, well, what do I do now that has been taken away from me? Like, I'm not, it feels like we're not doing it together, but actually it was the best decision we could have made. It's really worked, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we've just become a lot more focused on clients since March, haven't we? Since then, we've really niched down, honed in, and worked out. And we actually did it again. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, where we sat down and was like, we went through, and this is a great tip for anybody who's trying to do, well, not even online coaching, just PT. We went through our whole inbox of conversations that we've had with everyone and wrote down every single struggle that every single person's messaged us and said, this is what I'm struggling with. And from that, we then created, is it a spider diagram? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Brilliant. I don't know all this stuff. I just do the writing, but Jen tells me more.
I'm not particularly clever.
That is if you're me. Created like a full spider diagram graph of like what it is they're struggling with, why are they struggling with it, how can we help them overcome it, and then we use that as our way of creating content now moving forward. So it's like, right, well, over the last 3 months, this has been everyone's big struggle, so this is what I need to talk about, because clearly that's what my followers are struggling with.
And keeping it relevant to the moment as well. Like, I think the thing that we did really well at the start of lockdown was, what are people struggling with in terms of the health and fitness, and we looked at like the current problems and how they were different to what they'd been experiencing. So it was like, right, well, you're not moving anymore because you're now sitting down all day because you're not allowed to go out the house, and we talked to them about that and trying to keep it really relevant. And I think we did really well from the off, didn't we, in terms of the content that we were putting out there. But like Phil said, we do that quite regularly and check that our message is still what our audience is saying.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that as a PT as well. Like if you're speaking to, I know obviously not now, but the gyms are reopening again next week. Like if you're speaking to people on the gym floor and they've got specific struggles and you've got your target audience, they're the things to talk about on social media, because people on social media aren't different from the people you're speaking to in the gym. In fact, probably the people on social media anyway, they probably follow you because they go to your gym. Like, and I don't think I wish 4 years ago I'd have done that. Like, spoke to someone, heard the struggle, and gone, right, I'm doing a post on that tonight, because she probably follows me. She's gonna see it and go, I was talking about that today, and that's me. Like, that's what my struggle is. Yeah, he solved my problem straight away, and it's like so obvious. Like, it really is so obvious. But until you know, it's not. So it's like learning about how, when, what you do, who do you speak to, how do you actually overcome that struggle, and whether that struggle is relevant as well. Because we did go through.
A big bit of that as well is, especially if you've been in that position, it's almost saying what you wanted to hear, or being the thing that you wanted at the time when you were in their position. Because a lot of it, you would have sat there and thought, I wish I would have had this now, and you can provide that for them. You almost fill that gap that wasn't there for you but can be there for them, can't you?
Yeah, and I think that was the really nice thing about splitting our accounts. I was able to really tell my story through my Instagram there. Like, Phil was able to tell his story and what he'd done for other females in the gym, but I was able to tell my story, and it was me that was coming through then. It was like, look, these are the struggles I went through. I know this is what you're going through. This is what I did. And I think that helped my following grow quite a lot then on terms of my account. I mean, I put the hours in to try and grow my following. That was graft. But I mean, like, I started at 196 in March, because I was looking the other day, and I've now got 1,512 followers. But I really put the time and effort in for that. Like, I wasn't just sitting and waiting for them to come to me. I was going out, following people, commenting on things, liking things, going on accounts that I knew my audience would be sat at. Like, I was delving into it to get to that point.
Basically doing lead gen in the gym. Like,
it's the same.
Always your niche audience, isn't it? Like, they're the people that want to listen to me and want answers from me. So if I go say hello and follow them, they're probably going to respond. It's just like speaking to someone on a treadmill, isn't it?
Yeah.
But on social media, so you can do it 100 times an hour. And
that's the question that you asked us ages ago, which we've waffled on and filled for ages.
That's spot on.
This is a very long. A podcast usually this long because we can talk.
To be fair, they are, aren't they, mate?
Yeah.
For about an hour.
I just looked at the time and I was like, "Oh, we've been talking."
So we'll probably have an interval here, and then we'll get everyone to get some ice cream and come back or something.
No, but to actually answer that question, I think we did kind of, both of us jumped our jobs a little bit sooner than we probably anticipated, because we set ourselves financial goals So we said, like, by the time we hit this income, that is when the first person quits their job. When we hit this income, that is when the second person quits their job. But both of us actually jumped ship a little bit sooner than we planned, which meant we did have to make some financial sacrifices. But I think for you, it was more like, the gyms are open, do I go back, or do I continue to spend my time growing the online? And that was the conflict for you at that point, wasn't it?
They were literally opening the week later, and I was like, I know how many hours I'm putting into this at the minute, and I was like, I'm doing a full-time job, so if I then go back to the gym, I'm going to be doing this part-time. And I think, to me, honestly, like, if your work, like, obviously probably not right now, but in like a few months / years time, when everything does go back to normal, if you're working full-time in a gym, making that shift from full-time in a gym to full-time online, you're going to have to do full-time jobs, and it's as simple as that. I don't think there's a way in which you can do it quickly. I think you can do it slowly over the years. You could put in maybe 3-4 hours an evening, but if you want to like make the jump in the next, I don't know, 3 to 4 months, I would guess, because I've not done it that way, you would have to work 2 full-time jobs. You'd have to have your full-time personal training business. You'd have to have your full-time online coaching business, and you'd have to run them separately, but also in conjunction with each other, where you'd have your PT clients moving into your online business as online clients when they're ready, but then also having, like I did when I was a PT, have part of their service that is online, so that they get a feel for online, so they can move across and it doesn't feel like 2 different things. But you've got to be able to separate it so that you know which one you're working on at the time, and it is going to be time consuming.
Because I think that's exactly why lockdown was such a blessing for us. And like, I know Mike, when we came on, said, how's lockdown been? And we were like, I know this feels really bad to say this, but it's been amazing. Like, it gave us time that neither of us would have ever had to both of us sit and work. Because like, the teaching that I was doing, like, I was doing like an hour every single day, but I would get my jobs that I needed to get done and above that done in that time. I was like over delivering on what I needed to be doing in my teaching in an hour. So for me, then it was like, right, well, what can I use this time to be doing? And it just all went into the business. And I think when it came back to, so then obviously we went back, I was in year 6, so I went back for a little chunk of time before summer. But then again, I was only working 2 days a week because there was another year 6 teacher and we were closed for a day. So again, I was still able to work quite a lot of time on it. And then summer came and it was like, right, like really push it now. And the goal was to be at a certain point by September so that I could go and hand my notice in, and we weren't there. And it was like, well, because teaching, you have to hand it in like for a half term's notice, and they might only let you finish. Technically, you have to give a term's notice. So technically, they could say to me, no, you have to stay till December. Even when I handed my notice in September, and that's what they did. So they were like, no, you're staying till December. And I was like, I'd actually requested to not go back at all, because I was making myself ill thinking about going back. And I said to Phil, it's not worth it. Like, let's just take the financial hit. Like, we can cover the bills. I can't do it. And we kind of sat down and talked about it, didn't we? And it came to like my health over everything. And I went back and they basically said, no, you're coming back. And I went back and struggled. And they said, okay, we'll let you have part-time. So I went part-time and then ended up having a meltdown in school, and the deputy actually came to me and said, look, like, we've got a plan if you want to leave. And the day after, I just didn't go back. I phoned in sick because I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing it? Like, we've got the money. Why am I doing it? And when I phoned in sick, they then said, no, you can finish in October. So I finished in October in the end, which is kind of what I wanted, but took me suffering a little bit to get there. But I think the point is, like, we had to take that hit in order for us. And then, really nicely, it turned out the week that I officially left teaching, because I was on sick for 2 weeks, but that week we hit our first financial goal that we wanted to hit by the time I was leaving, in the same week that I then officially finished teaching. So it worked out really nicely in the end.
Place, didn't it, in the end, which was good. And I think you do just sometimes need to take a bit of a hit if you really do want to move forward. Like, it's, in anything, like, you have to lose something to gain something else. You never in life just keep like flowing forward and everything's great and everything's easy, and it'd be boring if it was anyway. So it's nice when you take a bit of a hit, and I think you feel the wins more when you have a few losses, because you realise why it's a win and what you've done to get there, rather than just being like, oh, it was handed on to me on a plate, which probably feels nice at the time. You learn nothing from that whatsoever. You get nowhere from it. You just hope that everything else gets handed to you on a plate. So I think with the way we've gone through it, not that we've planned it this way, it's helped us probably appreciate what we've done a little bit more, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
That's wicked. That's great to be like really, really good story as well to hear how you've gone from their separate industries coming together, built everything together. That's brilliant. We do wrap up the episodes with a little bit of a fun Q&A for you guys. So we'll go over to Mark. Mr. Love can ask the first one, mate. Go for it.
Right, so you're hosting a dinner. Did he get 3 guests each? Or have they got?
It's going to be hard, this one, because you're going to have to scrap it out between each other, I think.
So you've got 3. You've got to pick 3 guests between you. So you're at a dinner party, or you're hosting a dinner party. You've got 3 guests that you can bring. That's alive or dead. Who you bringing and why?
That's a big question. Can you not give me some time to think about this one?
No, that's right on the spot.
We do this on our podcast to each other, don't we? Oh, right. You have one. I'll have one.
Messi.
Seriously, that was too quick. I don't know.
I think about stuff.
I don't, obviously. Who can I have? You think of another one then? You can have all 3. I don't know who I want.
Yeah.
You said Messi, didn't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Why Messi?
Martin would love that though, wouldn't he?
Maradona.
Oh, it's a good table, this.
Yes. And
You'd probably have to get Pablo Escobar in if Maradona's there, to be fair.
yeah, and Escobar.
I think that I can't think of one person I'd invite to this dinner party.
Me? Bring me.
No, I don't want you. Oh.
I know yours would be.
Who tell me?
Vernon Kay.
At the moment, yeah, relevant.
Shane Ritchie.
No, I don't want you. Okay, right, I'll have Ryan Gosling.
Why?
It's funny, isn't it?
It's funny.
Alright as well.
I'll have Ryan Gosling because he's funny. Is that the biggest lie you've ever heard? Funny.
Right, so you bring your Ryan Gosling in, so you've got to get rid of either Messi or Maradona for Gosling.
I've got a joint one. Joint one, Peter Kay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Right. So we've got Peter Kay, Messi, and Maradona.
Yeah.
No, Gosling. Ryan Gosling.
No, Ryan Gosling. You get rid of another one.
No, I want Messi and Maradona because they're funny.
No, I can't.
Because they're funny.
One each and I've thought of mine.
I'll take Maradona.
Yeah. Peter Kay. And Ryan Gosling. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Next one, mate.
Sweet. So you've got your guests. You've got to feed them now. So you don't necessarily have to cook it yourself, but if you can, if you're an expert, then go for it. So 3 courses. What are you feeding them?
All right. Okay. This is good. I feel like we're good at this.
Yeah. Starter. Garlic mushrooms.
Garlic mushrooms. Yeah. I think that'd be good. Garlic mushrooms sound like a sourdough.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Main. Some kind of tapas.
Yeah. 100%.
Little tapas dishes.
Yeah. So we'd have.
Big paella in the middle.
Paella in the middle. Chorizo.
Yeah.
More garlic mushrooms. What else do we get from
I don't think Maradona will eat much, to be fair.
Some bread and cheeses and meats.
Yeah. Cold,
yeah.
Dessert.
Oh, that's a big one.
Bottle of Pinot Grigio.
Can't have dessert.
We usually do.
I'd make some Mars-bar cake.
Winner.
There you go. And the last one is you can both choose one each. So you're both stranded on a desert island and you can take one musical album of your choice. Which one would you take and why?
Question.
All right, okay, I've got it. John Mayer, Continuum. That is my album, my go-to album, always. Makes me feel great, relaxed. Could imagine lying on the beach with that. Yours would be something like Wigan Pier or something. One classics.
I'd have a good time though, wouldn't I?
To be fair, I could take one classics. That would be alright, party.
No, I think I'd take Cortina's first album.
Oh, good shout. Can we go on this island together? Cortina's and John Mayer sounds like a great time.
You can take one each, so you both can take one each.
Sweet, I'll take Cortina's first album.
Yeah. St. Jude.
There you go.
Yeah, good shout.
Thanks. I'd take St. Jude.
Laughing. No, to be fair, you can see why it would work, you two working together, because you do actually agree on some stuff. I'm not sure if that's the same for everyone, like, but fair play to you. But no, thanks for jumping on, guys. It's been great to talk to you. Some really, really good takeaways for anyone that's listening as well there. As you can see, I've still got this Movember Tash, so please do get your donations in, anyone that's listening. And if you can click on that subscribe button, you'll get an update every single time an episode comes out. But thanks again for jumping in, team, and we'll catch you all soon. Have a good one.